Okay, I'd like to start this video by mentioning I'm a little bit tipsy as of recording this audio, and also I just binge watched a 2-hour video across 2 days. As such, some of what I say may not be 100% correct with the information that was shown in Emily Artful's video, and there's no way that I could possibly get everything to the T of what she claimed. However, the common consensus of what I claim will be the exact same of what she claims, and I'll provide the screenshots on screen, which I urge you to look at so that you can confirm with certainty what I'm saying before taking it as fact. As such, you should keep your eyes on the screen paying attention to this video so that you are aware of the facts and not just what I'm claiming. Also, you should watch Emily Artful's full 2-hour video. The whole video goes in depth on everything that she believes happened to her by Creepshow Art and her ex, and also details all of her horrific experiences while giving her own opinion, perspective, and showing how it links to Shannon in a way that, to my opinion, does highlight how Shannon must have had some sort of involvement. However, I am also aware that Emily Artful has made some questionable decisions with how she's handled this situation publicly, but this is an incredibly personal situation to her, which obviously is going to have emotional effect when she releases it to the public to such a big audience of currently 600,000 views in like a day and a half, which is a huge audience, and also this is something that's been happening to her over the past 8 years. This is something incredibly serious to her life, and as such, she's going to react emotionally when people mock it in any way, which could lead her to make some ill-informed decisions or say some things that she doesn't necessarily mean, and I'd like to clarify that ahead of time. I'm not defending Emily on some of the mistakes she has made, however, I am going to call out what I believe she makes as a fair point against Creepshow Art and her ex, and I'm not really going to delve into the ex thing because I don't really think it's relevant to calling out Creepshow Art in particular, and I feel like that's something that should be handled in itself because the ex isn't a public creator. However, Creepshow Art definitely is, and a lot of what has happened with Creepshow Art, according to Emily Artful, has highlighted similar aspects to how I've perceived Creepshow Art recently. For example, with her excuses that she makes whenever she gets in a stressful situation. For example, how she apparently got hacked, lost ability to post community posts when she got criticized, and how for some reason she's unable to provide any evidence to defend anything that she's been claimed against, and instead just wants to handle this privately and all of that shit, while continuing to make more and more excuses and claiming that it just isn't her, and that it must be someone else. All of this shit, right? There is so much towards this, and as such, I'm gonna go through it and highlight to you how Creepshow Art may be Emily Artful's stalker, how Creepshow Art may be the person behind a lolcow account that details incredibly offensive comments, and also berates a lot of Creepshow's friends, and I intend to, from an unbiased perspective, explain how Creepshow Art is likely the person behind this. However, this is all allegations, and just like my previous videos, which you should definitely watch for more information, those videos took a lot of work as well, and I believe there's like 2 hours of content in themselves, because I've had to go through so much shit to just make these videos, going through everything, because this situation has so much to it. This video is going to be from an alleged perspective. I don't want anyone to presume that what I'm stating in the start of this video, or throughout any point in this video, is factual by any means, as at this point, there is no 100% concrete proof to prove that Creepshow Art is guilty, and if Creepshow Art does come out with a response proving herself innocent on any claims, I will be sure to cover that and prove in those claims that Creepshow Art is innocent if I do believe so. At this point, I currently personally believe that Creepshow Art may be lying about a lot of this. However, that is an allegation and not a fact, and I don't want to get sued for discussing something and bringing awareness to it. I believe that it is incredibly important to bring such sensitive information to light, and seeing as Emily Artful has recently released a video going through all of this, I intend to do the exact same and highlight what Emily Artful has said in a more concise, condensed, and target-focused video where I pinpoint all the main points and then I highlight on them and emphasize on them. Holy shit, that was one long intro. But before we begin, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 50k by the end of the year. If you subscribe, you can also turn on notifications right next to it to get notified every time I upload, which will help this content a lot, as these videos are a lot of work to make. If you can't tell, I've had to do like hours upon hours of research to make this video, and as such, it would be highly appreciated if you could just support this video in the slightest. Furthermore, if you could literally just check out my other social media linked in the description to see more of my opinions that I couldn't fit into this video, please do check them out. I have a Twitter, Discord, Instagram, all linked down below if you want to check out my other opinions on different topics, or keep informed with me, or see what I've had to say on Twitter that I couldn't fit into this video that was more personal or personal opinion based. Finally, if you want to check out my financial support options, you can check out my Patreon Ko-fi join button, and you'll receive a shout out at the end of every video if I can manage to fit it in, appreciating your support. With that being said, let's get into it. Emily Artful's video first details her relationship with her ex, where she goes in depth on how this ex took advantage of her in multiple different ways, just like one of her other abusive relationships, where she was manipulated to the extent where she couldn't feel free in her own body, and was at one point, while drunk, taken advantage of by her ex, according to Emily Artful. Then, as we continue through this video, we delve into what Creepshow Art has apparently done. Now, Emily can't prove for 100% that Creepshow was involved in these actions for sure. However, given she showed a lot of DMs between her and Creepshow, which kind of insinuate that sort of thing, and given that Creepshow is apparently dating Emily Artful's ex, and also given the fact that apparently Emily, according to herself, has traced these IPs back to their address, and given that Emily has shown that she sent emails to Facebook showing this information, given that Emily has apparently submitted police reports about it, and furthermore, because Emily wouldn't really gain anything from coming out with these allegations, as Creepshow Art could rebut them very easily if they weren't true, I am very inclined to believe what Emily has said in this video, and as such, I'm going to go through this video basically saying as much. The first point I'd like to detail is how Creepshow Art may have been involved in a lot of the sock puppet accounts that harassed Emily Artful over the past few years. This can be proved by the fact that Creepshow Art has a TikTok post up where you can spot within the post that Creepshow Art has sock puppet accounts logged in on Twitter, as she showed in this TikTok video that was highlighted by Emily on one of her Twitter posts. This would link Creepshow Art to a lot of the comments that were made threatening Emily Artful, saying that they had personal information about Emily, and that they were constantly harassing Emily with all of this information, that they apparently had sexually explicit images or videos of Emily when she was a minor, etc, 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 and also a lot of these comments that were constantly berating Emily for a multitude of different things. Given Shannon was also in a relationship with Emily's ex, I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched to presume that if the ex was harassing Emily, and as Emily claims she notices a difference in how these messages are worded, as over time Shannon may have got further involved, and given Emily cites multiple examples within Shannon's DMs where Shannon makes stories up that seemingly have no basis to be factual on, like when Emily highlights the fact that Shannon claims that she just came up with the series name and didn't realize that it was Emily's, but also apparently Shannon, according to Emily, followed some of her tutorials to a T, suggesting that Shannon had seen Emily's content before that. It would be very hard for Shannon to argue that she didn't know Emily, and that wouldn't add up with the timeline. Furthermore, given Emily claims that right after she brought to Shannon's awareness that Emily intended to bring a restraining order to Shannon and Anthony, the fact that immediately after that, all of the harassment ceased for the rest of time, I think it would also add on to the point that it would be incredibly hard for people to say that there was no correlation between Shannon finding out this information and the harassment just disappearing immediately. It's also to be noted that given that Emily's ex was apparently abusive in multiple different ways, and given Emily got DMs from this ex where they highlighted that apparently Emily had botted views, and then a few seconds after, Emily got a DM from a completely different account showing all this proof that apparently Emily bought views, and then also given the fact that Emily's ex knew where Emily was, they lived in a similar location, and then Emily one day randomly got messaged by an account that had screenshots that were apparently near Emily's location, very near, according to her town square, I think it would be not too far-fetched to claim that Emily's ex was involved, and it would be incredibly hard for Shannon to not realize this. Emily also highlights that in that stalker account that apparently came to her location, they also used a similar sense of comedy and tone as Emily's ex also did, which could further correlate them and relate their behavior together. Also, given Shannon claims that somehow some random account just DM'd her explicit images of Emily, which apparently according to Emily were of Emily when she was a minor, it seems very unlikely. Who randomly DMs a content creator like Creepshow Art and just sends them this type of explicit content, and not any other content creator, not knowing that Shannon and Emily had any kind of relationship, as it was never public, that they'd ever even involved each other in any way. That simply doesn't add up to me in the fact that that came out of Shannon's mouth in DMs to Emily. If these screenshots are real, that seems very suspicious to me in itself. Emily also claims that around this time she got a DM from a completely anonymous account that claimed that it was their brother that was stalking Emily, and that it had all this information about Emily, including explicit images of Emily, all of this shit, which simply would make no sense given the person behind this account claims that the brother that was apparently stalking Emily was 15 as of this moment, which would have made them 10 when apparently a lot of this shit happened, which simply, to me at minimum, makes no sense from my viewpoint. It simply doesn't add up to me that a 10-year-old would be stalking someone, would have all of this private information, and would have been sending these comments for years, berating Emily in so many different ways. A 10-year-old simply wouldn't do that. They wouldn't have that kind of comprehension, that kind of grammatical finesse, none of that. It simply wouldn't have happened. Also, given the account owner couldn't provide any proof at all, and also given the fact that the 15-year-old was just checked into a mental health hospital without anything else ever brought attention to about it, simply doesn't add up to me. Do you want to know something else incredibly suspicious that I noted? Shannon deleted her Instagram account when Emily went public about the fact that she was going to make a video discussing all of this. I'll give you a few seconds to guess where most of Emily Artful and Shannon's conversations took place. Instagram! Very obviously. It seems very suspicious that Shannon would delete a social media account like Instagram instead of just closing her DMs or not reading message requests, when, conveniently enough, that was the place that she had all these conversations with Emily, and she only deleted this on the wake of Emily making a video about this situation. Back into Emily's video though, another bit of proof that Emily provides to show that apparently it's Creepshow Art and her partner that has been stalking Emily is the fact that Emily traced back these accounts to find their location, and they linked back to a library location in San Jose, which is where Creepshow Art and her partner apparently lives. Now, given that information, you may go, well, how does that in any way relate to Creepshow Art and her partner? Well, you see, there are multiple story times on Creepshow Art's channel, and also on her partner's channel, where they detail how, for a time, because they were homeless, out of their own choice, and not because they were forced to be, how, in that time, the only place they could really get internet, or work, would be in a library. Now, that seems incredibly suspicious, and given Emily to this point has showed a lot of receipts to back up most of her points, though she obviously can't show IPs for legal reasons, and for the fact that you wouldn't want to dox someone and get people to turn against you, I think that this is a credible claim, and by itself seems to stand to reason that it would be Creepshow Art or her partner that was doing this, and while you can't tie Creepshow directly to this, as there's no 100% proof that it was Creepshow doing this, other than the fact she ran sock puppet accounts, other than she was partners with the person, other than she conveniently was also in the same places, other than Creepshow claims that her IP was hacked for the lolcow situation, which is a similar excuse, and also wouldn't make any sense. It furthermore develops my opinion that it likely was Shannon that was also involved in this whole situation, and when you look over Shannon's DMs that she sent to Emily when Emily told her about getting a restraining order, you'll notice a lot of what Shannon does comes across incredibly manipulatory, and Emily highlights that Shannon tried to jump upon Emily mentioning that Brandon may have been involved, and says, oh yes, Brandon was also linked to the PO box, which is an incredibly convincing way to try and pass any blame off in the event that any screenshots or proof that Emily had would link back to that PO box, as Shannon could be like, no, it was probably Brandon that also had access to the PO box, or Brandon that also had apparently been stalking Emily according to Creepshow. Furthermore, it's also incredibly suspicious from my viewpoint that Emily details the fact that Creepshow's stories on her channel coincidentally link very closely to many of Emily's stories that she has from her personal life, and also that Shannon conveniently chose a name like Amy to represent her stalker, which is very close to Emily, so that Shannon could possibly try and blame anything on Emily in the event that Emily was to come out about her experiences with Shannon and what happened. I personally believe that there is a lot of merit to the fact that Emily sees a lot of this proof and ties it back to Shannon, and Shannon just coincidentally has a stalker with a similar name, has similar experiences, and whenever she's called out on similar things, like the lolcow account, she just claims that she was hacked or makes similar excuses. I feel like it's incredibly questionable that Shannon wouldn't know anything about this situation or wouldn't have been involved as a stalker in the event that all of this other separate shit seems to very similarly link Shannon in a very similar way and paint her to have a very similar persona to what Emily portrays, and also given Emily's personal testimony of what she saw with the account's grammar changing, all of that shit, I think that there is merit to what Emily is claiming. Emily also provides proof that the IP that she shows within her video that she claims is apparently Creepshow Art's and her ex's, which she obviously censors for legal reasons, she highlights that when she checks the file information for that image, it comes from the exact same time that she took other screenshots about this whole situation. To me, that gives it a lot more merit, as no one would randomly screenshot an IP years ago planning for this situation, more than like 5 years ago, before any of this happened. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's also incredibly incredibly suspicious that after Emily's account apparently gets hacked, and Emily shows herself sending an email to Facebook back then that mentions this whole situation with the stalking and also highlights the IP how her email or account has been hacked, Emily's email somehow, a few days later, sends an email out about the project that her ex was working on that she no longer works on. It seems incredibly weird that that would be sent right after she's talking about being stalked by this person and had already cut ties with them. It seems in a way that they gained access to Emily's email, and from that, they sent this to make it seem like Emily would be making it up in the event that Emily tried to show anything against them in any kind of way. It simply wouldn't make sense for Emily to ever send this email. And also, that obviously very clearly links it back to the ex, as only the ex would ever do something like that. So, again, it puts more pressure on the fact that it may be Shannon, maybe the ex, that whole thing. And Emily's video continues from there, expanding on every single point I've mentioned in this video, highlighting more in depth on every single thing in relation to it, and showing more and more screenshots than I could possibly fit into this video, and keep it as condensed as it currently is. Emily's video goes in depth on everything, highlighting everything she believes, and I noticed a lot of people have mentioned, well, how does this prove it's Shannon? But I'd consider the DMs that Shannon sent to be a very clear indicator that she may have had some sort of involvement, and that's why I made this video, as I personally don't trust a single word Shannon said, given the information about the lolcow account has come out. I know Ready to Glare intends to come out with a video discussing everything she's experienced with Shannon, and I've noticed more recently that Emily has posted more and more tweets showing anonymous sources which seem, in my opinion, to be Ready to Glare, given how the name is censored. This is just a guess though, I may be wrong, but that account is remaining anonymous, claiming that Shannon had been shit-talking Emily for a long time. A lot of this seems to link very clearly back to Shannon, and it's incredibly hard to continue to make excuses for Shannon in the event that this may be true, and at this point, with this much evidence, it's upon Shannon to prove herself innocent. It's not upon us to prove Shannon innocent. It should be Shannon's responsibility, but I highly doubt she will, given she's just deleting social media accounts and not even posting videos anymore. She's completely disappeared, and I believe that that's because she realizes that she's guilty. But again, that's an allegation, that's not fact. I want it to be taken as an allegation, and that's where I intend to leave this video. Thank you for watching this incredibly in-depth video covering anything and everything that Emily Artful covers, if it had any significance to Shannon, and I hope this video has helped you understand the situation and keep you informed on what is currently going on. This video, in my opinion, is one of the more important ones, so if you'd feel free to share it on a different social media platform, that would be highly appreciated, as these videos take a lot of work, and I believe this information needs to be shared to the public in a more condensed format, as a lot of people aren't simply going to have the time to go through everything Emily's claimed, and a lot of people won't take the information necessary out of it, as they have to do a lot of the thinking themselves. So I thought I'd put this video together and explain everything that's claimed and give my short-sighted opinion on what I believe from the screenshots and how I believe it may link to Shannon. That's where I'll leave this video. Please do feel free to subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one, where I go in depth on multiple different situations like these ones, as they take a lot of work, and I don't want to disappear from your recommended feed in the event that this video has helped you, as I make more videos just like this one, where I explain how these situations get proven, and I go in depth on all the information. I've proven people like Colin actually guilty of their crimes before, and a whole hump of other people that have done many different terrible behaviors that I've proved without a doubt are guilty. So if you want to see more content like that one, feel free to check it out. Obviously, you're on my channel, so you can just subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss another upload, or in the event that you don't want to watch them, that's fine, I totally understand. And you can always unsubscribe later if you don't continue to enjoy these videos. I'm not going to be offended, to be completely honest. Finally, you can check out my other social media like my Twitter, Discord, Instagram down below to support me on different platforms. My Instagram is aiming for 1k followers, we're at 750 right now, so if you want to go check out my Instagram and support me there, that would be highly appreciated. My Twitter is on its way to 4,000 followers now, so if you want to go check out that platform as well, you can, and that would be highly appreciated. And my Discord is on its way to 2,000, so if you want to support me on all of those platforms, that would be incredibly well appreciated, and I couldn't thank you enough for doing so. Finally, I'd like to shout out my Patreons, Ko-fis, and channel members. So, shout out to Heimdall, Ghost of Groover, Spy62, Spy V, Ray, and many more who have donated their hard-earned money to support this content and allow me to invest further into it. If you'd like to become part of that list, or simply just support me, feel free to go donate down below by any of those methods, and you'll be thanked at the end of any video that I remember, because obviously I am going to forget at times, and also, you'll get any of the perks mentioned on those platforms. With that being said, That money will go straight into content and would be highly appreciated. Thank you for all of the recent support, and I hope this support keeps up so that I can continue making content for you guys that brings incredibly important information without being like the T channels that just, for lack of better words, spill slander about every single person they cover. So if you want to help me get bigger and allow me to grow my platforms, do feel free to subscribe. It would mean a lot, and I simply couldn't put into words how much your recent support has meant to me. It's meant a lot that I've been able to get important information out there and give my opinions on topics, and people have given me their ear to listen to what I have to say. Thank you for all of the recent support, I genuinely appreciate it, and with that being said, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. I shortened the intro for you because I know a lot of people wanted them to be shortened, and I hope it was good for you for this video. With that being said, I'll see you next time, and peace.
Says she wanna rock with it like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with it like me. We can catch a fly. Says she wanna rock with it like me.